Growing up in the vibrant city of Houston, camping wasn't exactly on the list of preferred activities for me and my urban-inclined friends. The notion of voluntarily immersing ourselves in the wilderness, battling insects and the unpredictability of nature, seemed absurd. Little did I know, my perspective would undergo a profound shift during my college years at the University of Houston. As fate would have it, my college roommate hailed from the quaint town of Lufkin, nestled in the Piney Woods region of East Texas. His childhood friends, also outdoor enthusiasts, were attending the same university, and they sparked my unexpected journey into the world of camping. One spring break, they extended an invitation to explore the scenic splendors of Sam Houston National Forest, a picturesque escape just a few hours from the bustling city. With no prior camping experience, I found myself relying on the guidance and shared equipment of my newfound companions. I bartered, borrowed, and improvised everything needed for the trip, except for one essential item: bug spray. Deep Woods Off became my steadfast companion, allowing me to focus on the actual camping experience without constant battles against relentless insects. Lake Livingston, a tranquil reservoir known for its bass fishing among other attractions, served as the backdrop for my initiation into the outdoors. What began as a reluctant adventure turned into an awakening when I caught my first fish. That singular moment marked the beginning of my love affair with the natural world. In the following years, I became an eager participant in every camping trip my friends organized. My knowledge of the outdoors expanded exponentially, and I even had the opportunity to witness the vastness of the ocean during a memorable summer expedition. Despite the university city vibe of Houston, I found solace in the proximity of Louisville Lake during warmer months, honing my newfound survival skills. Fast forward to my final year, and spring break presented an opportunity for a grand adventure. Eager to explore a renowned national forest in the eastern part of the state, I embarked on a journey, the name of which I prefer not to disclose. Little did I know that this expedition would alter my perception of the woods forever. Arriving at my chosen camping site just after 3 p.m., I meticulously set up my campsite, blissfully unaware of the events that would soon transpire. It wasn't until I decided to take a brief hike before dinner that an unsettling feeling crept over me, the distinct sensation of being watched. Though bears were not known to inhabit the area, a cautious awareness settled in as I curtailed my hike and returned to camp. That night, nothing out of the ordinary occurred, and I slumbered peacefully beneath the canopy of stars. The following morning, however, brought with it an otherworldly tranquility. The crisp air, the simple joy of breakfast, and the promise of adventure fueled my excitement to explore the woods. As the morning unfolded, a series of peculiar events began to unfold. The persistent feeling of being watched persisted, accompanied by distant shuffling sounds. Ignoring my instincts, I pressed forward, only to be startled by a sudden movement in the distance. The cawing of a crow served as an eerie confirmation that I wasn't alone, though the source of the surveillance remained elusive. Around 11 a.m., while pausing for a snack, a mosquito-induced awakening revealed a fleeting flash in the distance. The crow's vocalization heightened my unease, prompting me to scan my surroundings. My attempt to identify the mysterious watcher was met with silence, until a strange smell wafted through the air, abruptly plunging the forest into an unnatural silence. Against my better judgment, I approached the source of the odor, only to be met with the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Panic set in as I realized I was being shot at, and I instinctively hit the ground. The shots continued, and I dared not move, fearing the possibility of overzealous hunters. I called out, but my pleas were met with silence. Eventually, the forest sounds returned, and cautiously, I rose to my feet. The strange smell lingered, but curiosity overwhelmed my senses. Ignoring the warning signs, I moved towards it, only to be met with another barrage of shots. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I turned and sprinted back in the direction I had come from, my sole objective being to escape the danger that lurked in the woods. Minutes turned to what felt like an eternity as I fled for my life. The shots subsided, but I dared not pause, my fear propelling me forward until exhaustion finally forced me to a stop. Though the forest now seemed eerily silent, I didn't risk remaining in one place. Hydrating myself, I continued my escape, moving at a slower pace but with the same fervor. Within an hour, I found myself back at my campsite, a mixture of relief and terror washing over me. Packing hastily, I abandoned any notion of notifying the authorities, my sole focus on getting as far away from the national forest as possible. About 20 miles from the ominous woods, I stumbled upon a police station, where I reluctantly reported the harrowing encounter. The officer's response was subdued, citing the possibility of overzealous hunters. Despite my apprehensions, I provided a report, hesitant to revisit the scene of the incident. The guilt of not notifying the police sooner weighed on me, yet the officer thanked me for my account, and I left with a sense of uncertainty regarding any investigation. Back home, the relief of being away from the forest was palpable. Time passed, and life gradually returned to normal, but the woods I once cherished were forever tainted by the traumatic events. The story took an unexpected turn when, browsing an online forum, I stumbled upon a post echoing a similar experience in a different location. The account described stumbling upon a massive pot field guarded by potential cartel members, leading to a hail of gunfire during a hasty retreat. Though skeptical of the tale's authenticity, the seed of doubt was planted, and the prospect of illegal activities occurring in serene natural settings became an unsettling reality for me. While the odds of such incidents are minimal, the realization of the potential dangers lurking in the woods altered my perception irreversibly. The once pristine and serene landscape now bore the stain of criminal activities. Despite my love for the outdoors, the shadows cast by that fateful day kept me at a distance, resigned to preserving memories rather than risking another encounter with the darkness that tainted the beauty of nature. In the late spring of 2018, my long-anticipated camping trip out west finally came to fruition. 2 years of meticulous planning preceded this journey, and it marked my inaugural experience camping with firearms. The anticipation mingled with the excitement of exploring a part of the country I hadn't known much about. Upon arrival, I parked my truck and promptly notified my contact, ensuring someone knew of my safe arrival. After a final review of my agenda with my contact, I embarked on the long hike to my chosen campsite. The first day unfolded peacefully, and the pleasant weather allowed me to sleep under the stars beside my crackling fire, reveling in the refreshing sense of freedom in stark contrast to the restrictions back home. The following day mirrored the tranquility of the previous one. I strolled leisurely, absorbing the surrounding wildlife. Around 1 p.m., I discovered the perfect campsite, and Lux's quick scan affirmed my wise choice. Setting up camp was a breeze, and soon I found myself cooking lunch, reveling in the joys of self-sufficiency. Feeling a bit drowsy afterward, I seized the opportunity to indulge in some shooting practice. About 200 yards from my camp, a dry creek bed caught my eye, seemingly the safest spot for target practice. I set up steel targets, and the elation coursing through me as I sent rounds downrange echoed the sentiment of the mountain men of old. As I reloaded my SKS, however, the distant echo of gunshots pierced the air. Intrigued, my curiosity propelled me toward the source. The shots sounded like they came from multiple guns, casting a nervous shadow over my excitement. Following the echoes, I stumbled upon a grim realization: I might not be welcome in that direction. Trusting my instincts, I opted to return to camp, a decision that would linger with me, a source of both regret and relief. Back at camp, thoughts shifted to dinner after the shooting ceased. As I cleaned my guns, the echoes of gunshots seemed distant, and I assumed the shooters had moved on. However, as darkness fell, a bone-chilling scream shattered the serenity. I jolted awake, peeking out of my tent, dismissing it as a dream. Yet, the scream persisted, joined by a desperate plea for help. My mind raced. What should I do? The pitch-dark surroundings offered no clarity. Briefly considering grabbing my rifle and venturing into the unknown, I hesitated, grounded by the reality of potential danger. Another scream, followed by a gunshot, solidified my decision to stay put. Frozen in terror, I awaited the dawn, my feelings of freedom replaced by a sense of vulnerability. The guilt set in as the sun rose. I chastised myself for not helping, but the fear of the unknown kept me tethered to my camp. The internal war between ego and common sense waged on, the torment of indecision lingering throughout the drive back. Arriving at my truck just after dark, I turned for home, grateful for my escape. The guilt, however, persisted. Months later, I mustered the courage to uncover the truth. The revelation was a mixed bag of emotions. I had unwittingly camped near an outlaw biker gang who had abducted and abused a female backpacker. Her desperate screams for help and the subsequent gunshot were part of a horrific ordeal. Miraculously, she survived and the bikers were apprehended, serving life sentences for their crimes. Though relieved by the victim's survival, the what-ifs haunted me. The decision not to intervene, rooted in fear, left me grappling with an unending shame. I chose not to share the incident, opting for anonymity. My story serves as a testament to the internal conflicts we face when balancing self-preservation and the moral imperative to help others in distress. In the end, it underscores the complexities of human nature and the lasting consequences of the choices we make in moments of crisis. Let me take you back to the tumultuous times of my adolescence, around 15 years ago in 2007. I was just a 15-year-old, navigating the challenges of adolescence while living with my parents in a new neighborhood. We had moved, and the initial excitement of a new beginning soon gave way to the harsh reality of being an outsider. The neighborhood was sparsely populated, and the few kids around were significantly older than me. This age gap, coupled with other factors, fueled an atmosphere of hostility that made me an anxious and nervous kid. Faced with bullying at school and turmoil at home, I sought solace in the woods that stretched across the road. The woods became my haven, a sanctuary away from the troubles that plagued my daily life. It was a discovery born out of necessity, a place where I could find a strange sense of safety that had eluded me for a long time. In this hidden realm, I stumbled upon a small, secluded area framed by cedar trees, and it became my makeshift clubhouse. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself spending more and more time within the embrace of those trees. There was a sense of peace and security that I hadn't felt elsewhere. In fact, I once unintentionally fell asleep and spent an entire night in my secret haven. To my surprise, my parents hadn't even noticed, giving me the excuse I needed to turn my occasional retreats into regular camping trips. However, sustaining this newfound escape required resources, and asking my parents for money was out of the question. I embarked on a mission to earn my own camping supplies, which led me to offer lawn mowing services door to door. Admittedly, I had never mowed a lawn in my life, but that was a minor detail compared to the challenge of acquiring a lawnmower. I resorted to sneaking my dad's lawnmower for jobs until I was eventually caught, resulting in a stern reprimand. Undeterred, I managed to save enough money to purchase my own, albeit a subpar one. This marked a turning point, and my camping excursions became a safer and more sustainable endeavor. Armed with my barely working bike, I embarked on a 5-mile journey to an army surplus store. Emerging with an Alice pack stuffed with various camping essentials, I was eager to put my new gear to the test. Skipping a week of school, I camped out in my clubhouse, realizing that this seemingly addictive hobby was evolving into something much more profound, a source of safety and happiness in my tumultuous world. As time passed, my routine settled into a delicate balance. I attended school just enough to avoid trouble, heading straight to my clubhouse after classes. Those woods became my domain, and anyone venturing into them was perceived as an invader in my mind. This territorial mindset would soon play a significant role in an unexpected turn of events. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon during one of my camping weekends. As I followed the well-worn path to the creek for water, I noticed an almost deserted road across the creek. A parked camper caught my eye, and two men, seemingly oblivious to my presence, were engaged in the careless act of shooting guns and drinking beer. My initial fury intensified when a stray bullet struck the water just feet away from me. Fear replaced anger, and I sprinted the mile back home to call the sheriff. In a moment of desperation, I concocted a story about stumbling upon the armed men who had threatened me. It was a lie fueled by youth and anger, unaware of the repercussions that would follow. The anonymous tip led to a significant meth lab bust. Sheriff's deputies apprehended the two men, who were not only engaged in reckless gunfire but were also operating a mobile meth lab out of their camper. The gravity of the situation hit me as the news reported the arrest and the subsequent legal proceedings. In the months leading up to their sentencing hearing, I followed the case closely, still under the impression that my anonymous call had gone undetected. However, about 3 months before the hearing, I received an unsettling letter, anonymous and ominous. The first one merely warned, "You mess with the wrong people, kid." This was followed by another, more explicit threat the next week, "You better pray we get time served." The letters continued, creating an undercurrent of fear that persisted in the background of my life. When the day of the hearing arrived, the news was grim for the two men. Felons with multiple firearms, combined with the manufacturing charge, ensured a minimum sentence of 10 years. The judge, showing little leniency, handed down a 20-year sentence for each. Relief washed over me, as the perceived threat seemed to dissipate with the incarceration of these dangerous individuals. Life moved on, and the past 10 years unfolded in a series of ups and downs. The specter of the meth heads became a distant memory, and I allowed myself to believe that the worst was behind me. However, life has a way of resurrecting past ghosts when least expected. Just last week, an anonymous letter arrived at my apartment, shattering the illusion of safety. The message was chilling: "You better write a will, the end is close at hand." I dropped the letter involuntarily, the ice-cold fear returning. My girlfriend witnessed the distressing scene and picked up the letter, her concern evident. I dismissed it as a prank, refusing to delve into the painful memories that resurfaced. But with that single piece of mail, a ghost from my past had re-entered my present, throwing my life into disarray. Now, I find myself in a constant state of vigilance, haunted by the fear that these menacing figures might resurface. Every glance over my shoulder, every unfamiliar face in the crowd, sends shivers down my spine. The safety of my girlfriend and our newborn child hangs in the balance, and the specter of the past looms larger than ever. Seeking help from the authorities was a fleeting consideration, knowing that without concrete proof of the sender's identity, their hands would be tied. Options appear limited, and the only outlet I find is this anonymous submission, a desperate plea for understanding and support. As I lay bare my harrowing tale, I am reminded of the weight of choices made in my youth, choices that have cast a long shadow over my present. Wish me luck, and in your prayers, include not just me but the safety and well-being of my family. The journey ahead is uncertain, and I face it with trepidation, hoping that by sharing my story, I may find solace and strength in the face of an uncertain and potentially perilous future.